Now we'll say about logistic regression, where we are going to do binary classification. So binary classification means in the target class, we will have two classes, either yes or no, and so on. So in this example, we are going to see about diapatic data set classification using logistic regression. Let me show the data set here. This is a diapatic data set. If you consider the data set is having different fields like how many times a person is subjected to pregnancy, then glucose, then blood pressure. These are all the different parameters which are going to predict the outcome. Then skin thickness, insulin level, BMI, then diabetic, one more parameter called the diabetic pedigree. Then what is the age of the particular person, and so on. And if you consider the values, these are continuous values only. The input is continuous value. All are numbers, and some are integers and some are floating point data. And this is the outcome we want to predict. In the outcome, we have only two different labels. One is 1 and the other is 0. So it is going to be under regression, logistic regression, where we are going to predict binary classification. Now let us see the program. This is the basic information about the data set. So coming to our program, first I'm going to import the necessary packages. The first thing is I'm going to import pandas for dealing with the data frames. And then we are going to do logistic regression. For that, we need to import the package logistic regression. It is in sklearn. So from sklearn.linear_model, I'm going to import logistic regression. After that, we are going to split our data into train and then testing part. So for that, I need to import the necessary package, that is a train_test_split. Then to predict the accuracy of the model and to print the classification metrics, what we have seen in the morning, I'm going to import two different packages, accuracy_score and then classification_report. Both are again in sklearn only. In that, it is available in metrics. So I'm importing everything. After that, I need to load my data set. It is available as a CSV file. So I'm going to read the data set and it will be stored in a data frame called data. And I'm going to print the first 5 rows. If you see the first 5 rows, whatever I have shown in that, only the first 5 rows are printed by means of the head function. And let us see the shape of this by means of shape function. If you see the shape, it has 768 rows and then 9 columns. And I want to print a basic information about the data type. With the help of info function, you can print the information about the data type. So when I print for every column, it is going to display how many values are present in that particular column and what is the data type in that. If you consider pregnancies, glucose, blood pressure, skin thickness, insulin, then age, outcome, all are integers, whereas BMI and then diabetic pedigree function, they are floating point data. I have already shown you that. It contains some decimal points. After that, I want to describe the information about the data set, like what is the 25% value, 50%, 75%, and so on. For that, I am calling the describe function. I am printing the values. This is only for the analysis. When we do the project at that time, it will be useful to analyze the data. And now I want to print whether any null values are there in the data set. Null values in the sense, I want to find out whether any missing values are there. For that, I am going to use data.isNull.sum. It is going to count how many missing values are there for every column and it is going to print. Currently, I don't have any missing values. But if you consider my data set, even though I don't have missing values, just look at the data set. Here, if I consider the column skin thickness, many of the entries are 0 in this. If you can see the row number 4, then 7, 9, and then 11, 12, 13, 14. Many entries are there with 0 values. But skin thickness will not be 0 for anybody. Definitely, there will be some value. Similarly, in the insulin column, row number 2, 3, 4, and then 7, they are having again 0 values. That means that while entering the data, it may be conducted through a survey. And in the survey, the person might not have filled the data. So while entering the data entry operator, since the data is available, they might have entered 0 for that. So what we are going to do is we should not leave these things as 0 because they are going to convey some meaning. Definitely for anybody, insulin will not be 0. Similarly, BMI will not be 0 for anybody. So we are going to handle those data with the help of replacement. Let us see how to do that. This is a pre-processing you have to do whenever you do the projects. So now I'm going to handle replacement. Whatever data is there with value 0, I'm not going to keep it as 0. I'm going to replace the values by means of either mean or otherwise median. It is up to you. You can select the perfect metric. Now, whatever the data is not there, I'm going to replace them with first NaN. NaN stands for not a number. After that, I will identify whichever is having NaN. Then I will replace those NaN with some other metric. So first, wherever 0 is there, I'm going to replace 0 with NaN. So for that, whatever is my data frame, I'm going to create a copy of the data frame that will be stored in another data frame called data_n. It stands for new data frame. In that, if you consider the columns, we have here different columns in the input. In the pregnancies, sometimes you can allow 0 value also. So no need to replace this 0 under the pregnancy column by some other metric. But glucose cannot be 0, blood pressure cannot be 0, skin thickness cannot be 0, insulin, BMI, diabetic pedigree function, age, all cannot be 0. Whereas this pregnancy can be 0. So don't replace that particular column. Only the remaining columns, if you find 0, you have to replace that with some other value. So now that is the thing I'm going to do here. I'm not going to consider the age column. Let me leave it because I'm not giving importance for that. So, if you consider this in glucose column, then blood pressure, skin thickness, insulin, BMI. Now all the columns, whenever zeros are existing, I need to replace zeros by not a number, that is NaN. For that, what I'm doing here is I'm creating from the data frame, I'm extracting only these columns. Then I'm going to replace those values by means of replace function. So the original value, if it is 0, I'm going to replace that value by np.nan. np is nothing but our numpy. So in numpy, nan is defined. So we are going to replace that with nan. Now try to. So now what I have done in this is wherever there is 0 in these columns, these 5 columns, I have replaced the zeros with nan. Now I am going to find how many nan values are there in every column by means of isNull.sum function. If you do that, previously it was 0. You can see here when we printed initially it was 0 because there is no NaN in that. Every value is having some value. But now wherever zeros are there, we have replaced zeros with NaN. Therefore, you will get some value for the columns whichever had 0 originally. If you consider here, glucose was having 5 zeros, we have replaced that with NaN. Similarly, under skin thickness, 227 entries are with NaN now. So next we have to handle these NaN values. So how to handle the NaN value? You can replace the NaN either by means of mean of the particular column or otherwise median of a particular column or mode also. It is up to you. Now some of the rows I'm going to replace with median and some I'm going to replace with mean value. So if you consider the glucose column, I'm going to replace the glucose column wherever there is a NaN. That will be now replaced with mean of that particular column. So for that, I need to first extract what is the mean of that column. So for that, I'm using data_n glucose. So from the data frame data_n, it will extract only the glucose column. Then it will find the mean of that column. Okay, so then wherever NaN is there, I'm going to fill it. So I'm calling the function fill_na. So in fill_na function, you have to first give the argument as what value you want to fill in that particular column. For that only, here I am calling the mean function. So wherever NaN is there, now I want to fill it with the mean value. Then if you give in place is equal to true, it will change in the original data frame itself. If you don't give this, the changes will not be reflected in the original data frame because I'm storing the details again in the same data frame under the same column only. I'm not creating any other dummy extra column. Since I'm storing in the same data frame, same column, I have to reflect the changes in that. For that, I'm specifying in place is equal to true. Similarly, for the blood pressure column, I'm replacing the details with mean. Then for skin thickness, it is replaced with median. Remember, for every column, you have to use the corresponding column value only. Here, if you are replacing blood pressure, take the value of that blood pressure column and then replace it. Don't replace with some other column's value because they are having different meanings. So finally, when I do that, all the values are replaced. Now I am counting how many NaN values are there. Now I am getting 0. That means that all are replaced with proper values. Then we can find a correlation between different variables by means of data.correlation. It is going to print what is the correlation among different variables. And correlation will be calculated only for the variables which have numeric values. So now I am printing the correlation. You know what is the meaning of positive correlation and negative correlation and other things. Some are having positive correlation, some are having negative correlation, and so on. Now, if you see this, age is the outcome is the thing we want to predict, and the pregnancy is having positive correlation on outcome. Similarly, glucose is also having positive correlation on outcome. It means that if glucose level is increasing, then the diabetic will increase. So it is having positive correlation on the outcome. So similarly, you can find out what is the correlation among different variables. After that, you can easily print the correlation as a matrix. For that, in Seaborn, we have heat map. You can make use of that. It is going to differentiate different correlation levels with color mapping, so that it will be easy for us to visualize, and then we can immediately come to a conclusion. Instead of looking at the numbers, colors will be easy for us. So we are printing it as a correlation matrix is now printed as a heat map. For that, you have to import a Seaborn. So I'm importing Seaborn as SNS. Then in Seaborn, we have the function called heat map. For this, you have to pass the argument now. The argument is now we want to print the correlation matrix. So that is nothing but the correlation of data. Data is nothing but our data frame, which contains our data set. So data.correlation code. After that, if you give annotation is equal to true, then only it will display the values inside this. If you don't give annotation is equal to true, if you see here inside the heat map, I have values as 1, 0.13 and so on. It will not print it. If the values are there, it will be easy for us to understand. So I am giving annotation is equal to true. Then for displaying your heat map, you can use any color combination what you want. There are different color mapping schemes available. I'm using magenta _R. So it is going to display with this particular color combination. So now the correlation is printed as a heat map. So if you see this, what is the significance? If you see the colors, here one is nothing but it is indicated by black. Always remember diagonal will have one only because you are showing the correlation of a variable with respect to itself. Then whichever is having highest correlation, that will be highlighted in black color. Then color is decreasing like this. If you have light color, it means the correlation is very low. So if you see this, you can easily find out that this is having highest correlation. That is nothing but age is having highest correlation with the first column, which is nothing but pregnancy. Then if you see this one, outcome and the glucose, they have high positive correlation. Similarly, this one, insulin is having high correlation with skin thickness and so on. This is according to the data set that we have downloaded. So this correlation will be easy for us to understand everything visually. We need to divide our data set into X and then Y. X is nothing but the features and Y is the outcome. So first, in my data set, I am going to drop only the outcome column. Remaining will be going to form the features. So I'm declaring X is equal to data.drop outcome, then X is equal to column. Then I'm printing it. So now other than outcome, remaining all are printed. Then you can set your Y. Y is nothing but the target class. Y is equal to data.outcome. You can see here the minimum maximum value we have printed by means of describe function. From this, if you see the pregnancy column, minimum value is 0 and maximum value is 17. And if you see the glucose, minimum is 0, maximum is 199. And in insulin, maximum is 846. And in this diabetic pedigree function, maximum is 2.42. So the minimum maximum value and the range of values are different for each and every column. So whenever you go for different columns with different attribute range, you can always go for normalization. We have already seen different methods of normalization. When you do that, in normalization, you can bring all into a uniform range so that a positive high value number will not have more overfitting on the data set. So what we are going to do is we are going to normalize all the data. For that, I am doing now standard scalar I'm importing. So this standard scalar is going to support Z-score normalization, which is based upon the mean and the standard deviation value. So I'm going to implement that. For that, from sklearn.preprocessing, I am going to import the standard scalar. Then I'm creating an object for this standard scalar class. After that, I'm going to call fit_transform with the help of this object sc_x. To this fit_transform, I have to pass my data set. Now, what I want to normalize, whatever is my X, that is nothing but set of features, all I want to normalize. So I'm giving that as an argument. And finally, whatever answer is returned, I'm storing in the same data frame X, and then I'm printing it. If you see here now, we have now changed the range. That is, some columns are not having high value and so on. So we have done normalization. Always it is better practice to go for normalization. Then we are going to split our data set into training and then splitting, testing. For that, I'm going to call train underscore test underscore split. Here I have done the size for the test as 20%. That means that I'm doing 80:20% train test split. So now after the splitting is over, you can create the logistic regression model. For that, I'm creating an object for logistic regression. Once that is over, the object will be ready. Now you can fit or train the model by passing the training set. In the training set, we have X-train as well as Y-train. X-train contains only the features in the training set, and Y-train contains the target class for the training set. Pass those things to the fit function. This is the place where we are training our data set, training our model. And when the model is trained, it is going to learn the parameters of the model. So the parameters of the logistic regression model will be learned here. After that, we are going to predict. So for predicting, we are going to call the function model.predict. For prediction, we have already split the data set. We are not going to do with the same training set. We have the testing set for that. So that we are going to give as an argument, X underscore test. Once you do that, it is going to predict Y value for all the columns or samples which are available in X underscore text. That I'm storing in Y underscore predict. Now we can print a predict Y underscore predict. These are all the predicted values. You can see the labels. The labels are either 0 or otherwise 1. Now, after the prediction is over, this is an important thing here. For logistic regression, I told that everything is based upon the probability. So for every prediction, there will be a probability. And here, if you print the probability, that is the prediction probability, you can do that with the help of model.predict underscore probability. And here we have simply predicted. It is going to print the class label itself. But here we are not predicting the class label. We are predicting the probability for all the samples in the X underscore test. So if you see here, for every sample, 2 values are printed. So if you see the probability here, for every entry, it is we cannot predict that it always belongs to class label 0 with 100% accuracy. Okay, the probability is going to range from 0 to 1. Here we are going to, for the first entry, the probability is given like this. It means that for the first entry, with the probability of 0.722, it is predicted as class 0. And then with the probability of 0.277, it is predicted as class 1. That means that it is giving 2 values. Whichever is greater than the threshold, that particular entry will be taken for that. For example, if I assume that the threshold for my model is 0.5, then for this particular row, okay, which is greater than 0.5, this one is greater than 0.5. Therefore, the class label will be printed as 0. Now you can consider this one here. For this particular entry, for under 0, we have 0.22, whereas for 1, we have 0.77. Therefore, for this entry, the class label will be printed as 1. Okay, so based upon the probability only, logistic regression model is going to print the class labels because it is using sigmoid function for that. Okay. So now, once this is over, you can simply compare what is the Y underscore test and then what is the Y underscore predict. So this is Y underscore test, and here I have printed Y underscore predict. Now here, this is the X underscore test. After my normalization, this is the X underscore test. Now why I have split it here is I want to show you what will be the output for a particular sample. Then for the corresponding testing, I have printed Y underscore test also. Now for this, I am predicting what is the value for the diabetic outcome column. So this is nothing but the normalized data. For this, the output is printed as array of 0. That means that the class label for this particular entry is 0. Similarly, you can test for everything. Then you can print the accuracy of your model by calling accuracy underscore score. For this, you need to pass 2 things. What is the testing original testing label, which is available in Y underscore test, and then what is the predicted label for your particular data set in your logistic regression model, which is available in Y underscore predict. So in this, we are getting the accuracy as 75%. accuracy we are getting. So here the classification report is going to tell you different things like what is the precision, recall, F1 score of your model. For that, you can call classification underscore report. In this, again, you are going to develop the report only for your testing data set, because during the training, you are simply training your model. Here, you are measuring the performance of your system, that you are measuring only with the help of the testing data set. So you pass what is the original label in the testing data set, which is nothing but y underscore test. Then the second parameter is what is the label you have predicted in your data set, in your regression model. So y underscore predict. These two are passed as argument to this classification report. It is going to print parameters like what is the precision, then recall, F1 score, and then support. In the morning class, we have seen about the precision, recall, F1 score. Only the support I didn't tell you in the morning. Now let me tell you what is this support. Support is nothing but it is the number of actual occurrences of the class in the specified data set. Now here, in the data set, this is a data set which contains only the testing samples, not the entire data set, because I'm passing only the testing samples here. If you consider the length of your testing data set, for that only I have printed here the length of the testing data set. I have divided the whole data set into training and then testing. If I print len of y underscore test, I can get how many records are there in the testing data set alone. So it is 154 records. So I am testing 154 records. Out of 154 records, 99 records belong to the outcome as 0. That means no diabetic. And 55 records belong to the outcome as 1. So this is called as support. It is the number of actual occurrences of the class in the specified data set. So now we are printing the classification report. And also you can print the confusion matrix, what I taught you in the morning. For the confusion matrix, you can use sklearn.matrix. In that, confusion matrix is defined. You can import the package. And for confusion matrix, again, we are going to pass two arguments. One is y underscore test, and another is y underscore predictor. And you can print the confusion matrix. Now, if you see this confusion matrix, it is a 2x2 matrix. It is having 4 entries. What is the reason is, in our outcome, we have only 2 different labels. So the number of classes will be determining the size of your matrix. Since we have 2 labels in our outcome column, we have 2x2 matrix. And in this, always try to understand how sklearn is manipulating confusion matrix. It is not like what we have seen in the theory in the morning. Always, if you have n classes, for n classes, for example, let me assume that I am predicting a data set which has image of 3 different animals, cat, lion, and then dog. So there are 3 classes. So the index will be assigned as 0, 1, and 2. Okay. So here, the first is always 0. The first row is always related to index 0, similar to our normal matrix manipulation only. So this can be now treated as outcome 0. 79 can be treated as outcome 0, and the column is also 0. And if you see 20, the row is 0, column is 1. Then for 18, row is 1, column is 0. For 37, row is 0. Sorry, row is 1, column is also 1. Okay. So 0 is one of the outcome, 1 is another outcome. So that is how you have to manipulate these entries. Okay. So now if you see 79, row, you can see that the actual values are there. In the column, predicted values are there. Okay. So what is the meaning of 79 is, it is in 0, 0. That means actual value is 0, predicted is also 0. I am printing Tn. Tn is nothing but true negative. True negative stands for, originally it is 0, it is also predicted as 0. Okay. So as I told you, first is for 0 index only. So here it is actually 0, it is predicted as 0. So 79 is nothing but Tn. And if you consider 20, it is in the row. Which row? Row is 0. Row 0 means in the row we are taking the actual value. Okay. Actual value is 0 and column is 1. That is predicted value is 1. Okay. So actual is 0, predicted is 1. That means it is false. Okay. So we are writing F. And is it positive or negative? False positive or negative? Actual is 0, you are predicting as 1. Therefore, it is false positive. So 20 corresponds to false positive. And if you see 18, it is in the row 1. Row 1 means row stands for our actual value. So actual value is 1. And column is 0. Column stands for predicted value. Predicted value is now 0. That means that actually it is 1. It is predicted as 0. That means it is false. So we have now false. So F is there. How it is predicted? It is predicted as 0. That means false negative. And if you consider 37, it is in row 1, column 1. That means that both are actual is 1 and predicted is 1. That means that it is true positive. Both are correct, so it is true positive. This is how you have to interpret this matrix. Whatever may be the dimension of the matrix, diagonal value is going to tell that the prediction is true. Okay, whichever is other than the diagonal element, that is nothing but the prediction is false. That is the thing you can understand from this. Now, I am extracting the confusion matrix and then it is printed. So I am getting 2 cross 2 matrix. After that, if your data classification problem is a binary classification, then you will get these 4 parameters, TN, FP, and then F1, TP. You can print those values. For that, you can call confusion underscore matrix. You pass y underscore test, y underscore predict. You can call Ravel function. When you do that, it will extract these 4 parameters and it will return in the same order. Okay, the order is nothing but you have to first take the first row elements followed by the second row element and so on. Then you can print the confusion matrix as a figure also. For that, you can make use of these statements. When you do that, confusion matrix will be printed as a figure. So even here we have the labels 0, 0, then 0, 1. Here 1, 0, 1, 1. Different labels are present.